Thank you for making time for us on the Trading Bell today. As always, I'm Maalika, Kazia, and we've got an important discussion for you. We've got somebody who is going to be telling us more about the ICT sector in the country, actually the best person to tell us, and that is Cabinet Secretary for ICT, Mucheru. We're going to get into the details of exactly what's happening in the digital space in Kenya, as well as some tidbits here and there about the latest national budget and its allocation to this particular docket. But first, do take a look at his profile. Mr. Joe Mucheru was appointed Cabinet Secretary by His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2015. He was formerly the Google Sub-Saharan Africa Ambassador as well as Google Country Manager Kenya, based in Nairobi. He joined Google in June 2007, where he led the delivery of strategy, business planning and operations. Before joining Google, he worked at Wananchi Online, a company he co-founded in 1999. He held various roles at the company, including strategy and business director and CEO. He studied at London's City University and also attended Stanford University's executive program in 2008. So thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thank you.
All right, so, as we jump into this conversation, we, of course, saw very recently the national budget for the country coming out for 2020-2021. And in it, many Kenyans, of course, were paying attention to the taxation. And one of the important measures that we saw being commented on was that the online transactions will now attract a 1.5% digital tax as we continue to, rope in that e-commerce sector in the country. Tell us a little bit more about this.
So first, maybe I set some context. ICT is a big part of the country. We've seen significant growth in investment, significant growth in the usage of ICT. Even during this pandemic period, ICT growth and usage has significantly increased. So introduction of this tax means that then, this sector is also growing up and beginning to contribute like other sectors have been contributing, to ensure that we continue to see the infrastructure being built. Right now, the needs of the country, whether it is on production of food, delivery, logistics, all these require money. And so as companies in the sector come in, then they should be able to contribute also. So I think for me, one thing is that it shows growth in the sector, that actually the National Treasury is looking at taxing some of that. But at the same time, not all the companies are under the bracket that this tax comes in. There's certain thresholds that must be met. And as we speak right now, there's public consultation that's going on how the regulations are going to be implemented. Okay. For example, if you go online and you're buying a TV, the online platform takes a commission from the sale of the TV. So they're not expected to be paying taxes on the whole TV, because actually whoever is selling the TV is also paying taxes. They're paying on their amount if it has met a specific threshold. So all that is being discussed, and the final regulations will be in place. This was just announced. So I think for the sector, it's not a significant amount, unless people should actually look at the detail. The detail is actually where all the data is, and for many businesses actually this is going to help us grow, versus what some people are trying to say, that this is punitive. Actually, I think it's going to help us.
So what would you say to the worried Kenyan who's like, I have an online business, I sell maybe clothes via a social media platform, things like that. How will this touch them?
You see, the person at a kiosk pays tax. Why shouldn't somebody who's online also pay tax? The more we contribute to the taxation, the more budget will get allocated, because then, National Treasury is also able to see what role we are actually playing in the ICT sector. But they should not worry. I think let them look at the specifics as to whether they themselves actually fall into the category, and more so, can they contribute to the regulations that are currently being discussed and undergoing public participation. And that will actually help even KRA in determining how the taxation will be done.
So we've seen, of course, given the COVID-19 period, a lot of job losses in the millions even. And a lot of people then are saying that, okay, as a fallback, you know, what can we do? We can get into entrepreneurship, and the digital space becomes very much more attractive at that point as well. So how are we perhaps enabling that environment for such businesses, such entrepreneurs to thrive, especially given the period we're in?
So there are several things that we've been working on. First of all, in everything the president has talked about, it's about health and livelihoods. Just ensuring that we're protecting lives as well as ensuring that we're seeing growth. So you're right, the technology side is actually been growing, and it's created a lot of opportunities where you can go online, purchase something, and it doesn't have, you know, the contact. So social distancing is there by default.
Yes.
With ICT. I gazetted a COVID-19 advisory committee, and that committee so far has reviewed over 400 different applications and innovations that Kenyans have brought forward. We're looking at supporting those so that we can be able to create jobs as well as safeguard jobs. That is in line with you know, one of our projects, which is the whitebox.go.ke, where people also are bringing many of their different innovations that we could work with them to see how to scale. But when you look at overall, there are companies that are really doing well in the logistics space, delivering, whether it is food, whether it is goods to homes.
Yeah.
They have seen an expansion and growth. The demand has significantly grown. We have seen platforms that were waning now are doing actually quite well, because the demands for these products online are actually increasing. From a logistics point of view, we are seeing that across the country, and actually even regionally, you know, governments have ensured that there is still a good flow of goods throughout, and therefore we are seeing the growth in terms of the technology space. Companies being able to now take products from one area to another, and people are able to actually transact better. I'll add that digital work is also one of the areas we've seen growth. We've seen young people, you know, being taken even into hotels which are booked. There's proper social distancing, so they continue to work on digital platforms that are overseas. So we are exporting some of the skills, and that actually continues to grow. Recently, we launched a film hub at Dedan Kimathi University, and the companies that were there that are taking advantage of some of this infrastructure, they are producing advertisements, they're producing you know, small videos and shows and films for overseas companies, and they're getting paid in hard currency. They are involved in gaming, they're involved in doing some documentaries. So there's a lot of different areas, the creative sector as well as digital work. We have a partnership with the MasterCard Foundation. They are assisting us in providing training. So we have trainers now. We're going to have over 100 trainers that will be available to young people in Kenya shortly, who will actually train them on how they can go online and actually start earning.
Okay.
This is combined with what we are calling Ajira innovation hubs across the country. Those, again, we have center managers, and people can be able to interact with them. Right now, the interactions are digital; they are not physical, but they will get training. So the trainers we've put in have, you know, years of experience in earning online, and we hope that they'll be able to sambaza that to everybody else.
Okay, so even as we talk about entrepreneurs, a lot of business functions have also been digitized because of the situation and physical distancing, like you said, reduction of congestion in the offices and all that. Yes. There's that question of cybersecurity that comes in there, because as much as, you know, you've made sure that functions are able to operate from outside the office, it does provide some sort of opportunity for those who are maybe trying to take advantage of that, for instance, in terms of security. Right. So what kind of infrastructural development have we seen in that area to be able to curtail any kind of threats online for businesses?
So there are several. One, the policy, the regulations and the laws are now in place, both for data protection, ensuring that even though company data espionage is actually, you know, the data is well protected, and especially for personally identifiable information in terms of security. We are in the final stages of hiring a data commissioner who will actually now implement. We have the computer and cybercrime law that is now fully functional. Someone had taken us to court to try and stop its operationalization. The courts have ruled that it is legitimate and we can go ahead and implement. So we have the tools that are there that are necessary first to catch people who are trying to break laws and really use the technology space that we've put in place in negative ways. We at the same time have through the Communications Authority what we call the public key infrastructure. So that infrastructure is in place, and what that means is that everybody can be able to get a certificate. That certificate can then be used to authenticate whether it is you online or not. It's the same signature that you can actually be able to use.
Okay.
And so even in the digitization processes we're using with the Ministry of Lands and even the judiciary, our aim is to ensure now with the PKI or the digital certificate, you can identify who's where. We've been working with the various platforms to ensure that the way for instance, video conferencing applications are being used, you can tell who's logging in, where they're logging in from. You can manage and control that from the businesses. At the same time, we are also working on educating and training people through the computer incidents and cybercrime unit that we have at the Communications Authority. We provide as much information when we see a lot of these threats.
Okay.
For example, right now there is a game or a pyramid scheme, Crowd One, where people are being asked to pay, like 99 euros. And it's clear, alerting people that these kind of things are there. There are scams that are being used digitally, when people are trying to look for work, and that they should be dealt with. So we have a team that is working on that.
We've also seen that the social media space has come into a lot of scrutiny recently. If we talk about Facebook, for quite a few, in fact, from years even, we would say, there's been this back and forth about the privacy on these apps and protecting that for people and not being able to take advantage of that data. Your thoughts on that?
So I think the data protection law that we've put in place is actually one of the best in the world. We've taken from other jurisdictions, whether it is Europe or US, where we are looking at how do we ensure we protect our citizens' data and ensure that it's not then being used negatively or used to exploit them. But at the same time, citizens want to be able to access services from these different providers, both international and local providers. So for instance, you want to be shown directions to, say, a hospital. For you to be shown those directions on your phone, then you must activate where you are so that then the platform can tell you where you need to go. So the key thing is, have you authorized use of your data or not? And that's why the regulations are to ensure that if you're going to use someone's data, they must authorize you to be able to do that. Because again, use of this data is actually been very productive. You go into, say, a shop, it can tell you there's a discount on this. It can give you a lot of interesting information if you provide some personal data. So it's a combination of both, but ensuring that citizens are fully alert and aware of what are their rights and how their data is actually being used. So if they want their data deleted, then the law will allow for that to happen.
Okay. Going back a little bit to the budget now, we did see that the ICT docket was had a bit of a reduced by about 1 billion shillings in terms of the allocation this year around. We did see that an additional close to 11 billion shillings was again allocated to the Kazia Technopolis project. So tell me a little bit about the progress with that, and maybe when we can expect full fledged optimization and opening of that particular project, because we've also seen the data center and getting about 5 billion again in this budget.
So let me say that we are happy with the budget allocation we have received.
Yes.
The support that we provide to other ministries means even Ministry of Health, Education, all the ministries we're working with. So during this time where it's been very difficult even in terms of just getting all the budgets, we're happy that we have budgets that will allow us to continue with the development agenda that has been set for us. The president has been very clear that we are a digital economy and we need to be able to grow. We are driving the digital economy blueprint even in the continent. We launched that with the president in Kigali. So when we look at Konza is part of a bigger plan. It's a part of Vision 2030. And we've begun with the horizontal infrastructure. By the end of 2021, I hope we will have most of the horizontal infrastructure completed. Now we have the roads, we have water, we have electricity, all the things that are necessary, including the headquarters, which is already been developed. We have additional budget to ensure that we complete all the required amenities around that. In fact, as we speak, the Konza staff work from Konza itself. Before they used to work from Westlands, now they fully migrated to Konza. It's actually moving on very, very well. There's actually a documentary that's available online that people can go and actually watch to see what's going on. We have over 1,100 workers working there today. So they're doing the horizontal infrastructure, as I mentioned. We do have a university that is coming up. This is the Kenya Advanced Institute of Science and Technology in collaboration with Korea, South Korea. That is one that we're building, and this is really for advanced education, so masters and beyond. That is being set up, and many companies have come in. We have even the local women, they call themselves Makueni Aka. They've taken space, they plan to put up their own buildings. So there are many things going on there, and the development is happening. What I really urge Kenyans is that this is the time for them to also visit, they see where they can play a part. Many local companies have also been visiting, whether it is the hospitals, whether it is research, whether it is people even in agro, tech, biotech, they're there. And so don't be left behind, be part of the development and the growth that's going on there.
Okay.
The data center, just as a final thing, is being used to ensure many of the services that government is using are available. For instance, the video conferencing capability, we want to make sure it is there. We want to make sure that there is space available for even local startups where they can be able to host locally at affordable rates. With the kind of skills that they have, they can begin to innovate. So all these investments are going to help us as we grow. The stability in our financial systems, I'm talking of like our integrated financial management system, IFMIS. People used to complain about that, but now we've stabilized. That's why we've been investing heavily on the ICT infrastructure. So this is a combination of many activities that are going on, and we hope that with all these, people will take advantage and invest and see growth.
When we talk about growth, we've also seen, like we were talking about digital functions progressing. We've seen the Nairobi Securities Exchange application that was launched recently as well. And it enables a lot of investors to be able to log into that, plug into that platform and get different kinds of information. So, what are your thoughts on that kind of progression, especially in the financial sector?
I think it's something that has come at the right time. At the moment, investment it requires information. People need to be able to study, they need to be able to research and be able to know where can they actually invest. If you go to Silicon Valley, many of those companies are listed, and as a result, they've been able to create a lot of wealth for many different individuals. Farmers, engineers, all sorts of people who are not even in the ICT sector are able to take advantage by investing in companies that are in the technology space, and therefore you see a lot of wealth creation. The launch of the app helps in dissemination of this information and being able to provide the opportunities for people to then invest. I think there's still the old process that you still have to go through, the brokerage or the investment banks to be able to invest and so on. I think some already have platforms that you can use to invest. this should be made even more public. People should know how they can actually use, and then you can be able to analyze and see which areas to invest. Unfortunately, during this time of COVID-19, we've seen the market significantly reduce, but this is also the time then those that have the ability that they can go and invest and get some good quality stocks, you know, at much lower prices. And when the time comes and we are post COVID, you will actually see the value grow. For me, the challenge I still want to pose is for ICT sector companies to list their companies in the Securities Exchange, because this will then allow other Kenyans to take you know, benefits out of that. Safaricom has been a great example. I mean, they have really grown and they have made millions of you know, people a lot of wealth. In the same way, many other companies can do the same. So happy that we're seeing technology going into this space.
Going a bit broader, you had launched this blockchain and AI report about a year ago. And of course, with the onset of the pandemic, perhaps the progress in those sectors has not been as exponential as you had expected. But where do you think Kenya stands with the adoption of such, especially when you talk about IoT, AI and the likes? A lot of people would say on the flip side that we need to first make sure our basics are covered before we head to those sorts of you know, levels in terms of technology. So what do you say to that?
No, first, you know, technology is here to stay, and we can't say we wait, because if we wait, others will innovate and they will go ahead. So we must be at the forefront of the development. We must be at the forefront of the innovations. And what we got from the task force, the report that they gave us, is in use, not just in Kenya, but actually within the continent. And the value and advantages that we've got from that have included the fact that when you look at blockchain, many of the applications we're putting in place, even within government, they're using this blockchain and artificial intelligence technologies that came in. If you look at the investments that are coming in, based on some of the directions that were given, we now have electronics manufacturing and even semiconductor manufacturing happening, and you know, the factories are being set up. So we expect in the next few months, we're actually going to be exporting, even producing a lot of these electronics. So IoT devices, sensors, all this will begin to be produced here. So that investment continues, and it's based on the findings and the guidance that came from these task force reports.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I hope to speak again with you soon.
And there you go, a lot of insights from the CS when it comes to the digital space in Kenya, the digital tax, and a lot more issues as well. So I'm hoping you were able to gain a lot more information from this episode of The Trading Bell. And of course, keep up with us for much more on our social media handles. They are appearing right there on your screen. Until next time, I'm Maalika Kazia. Stay safe, stay smiling.